What happens when a duchess sits down for what should be a simple chat, only to face an all-out verbal war? It only took 31 seconds for this conversation to explode into chaos. Before we get into this shocking showdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button for daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals. Last night on the Jonathan Ross Show, tensions reached a boiling point that nobody saw coming. Meghan Markle walked into that studio expecting a typical talk show appearance, but what unfolded was anything but typical. This was a confrontation that left the audience gasping, the crew scrambling, and social media absolutely losing its mind. The evening started innocently enough. Meghan arrived at the studio looking polished and camera-ready, wearing an elegant navy dress and her signature warm smile. The audience welcomed her with enthusiastic applause as she made her way to the famous red couch. Jonathan Ross greeted her with his usual theatrical charm. "Meghan, wonderful to have you here," Jonathan said, settling into his chair across from her. "You look absolutely lovely tonight." "Thank you, Jonathan. It's great to be here," Meghan replied. The first few minutes were standard talk show fare. They chatted about Los Angeles versus London, about adjusting to life in California. Meghan seemed relaxed, laughing at Jonathan's jokes. The audience was charmed by her warmth and wit. But then, Jonathan shifted gears. "So, Meghan, I have to ask," he began, his tone changing ever so slightly. "You and Harry have been quite busy since leaving the UK, haven't you? Netflix deals, book deals, podcasts. You've really capitalized on your royal connections." Meghan's smile faltered for just a moment. "Well, we've been working on projects that matter to us, yes. Projects that align with our values and allow us to make a positive impact." Right, Jonathan nodded, but there was something sharp in his eyes now. "But it's interesting, isn't it? You wanted privacy, wanted to step back from the spotlight, and yet you've done interviews, documentaries. Harry wrote an entire memoir. That's not exactly keeping a low profile, is it?" The audience stirred. This was getting interesting. "Jonathan, there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what we meant by privacy," Meghan explained, shifting in her seat. "We weren't asking to disappear from public life entirely. We were asking for the right to choose when and how we engage with the media, rather than being hounded by paparazzi outside our home at 3 a.m. "But surely you must have known what you were getting into when you married Harry," Jonathan pressed. "The royal family has dealt with media attention for generations. It's part of the job." "It's one thing to deal with media attention," Meghan said, her voice tightening. "It's another thing entirely to deal with coordinated harassment, racist attacks, and complete fabrications being printed as fact every single day." "Racist attacks," Jonathan repeated, leaning forward with interest. "That's a serious charge. Can you give us some specific examples?" "I've talked about this extensively in other forums," Meghan replied carefully. "The constant comparisons between me and Kate, where the exact same action would be praised for her and criticized for me. The headlines about me being exotic or straight out of Compton. The monkey imagery, it was relentless." "Some people might say you're being oversensitive," Jonathan suggested. "That you're reading too much into things. And those people," Meghan said sharply, "have likely never experienced racism themselves. It's easy to dismiss when you've never lived it." Jonathan sat back, a slight smirk on his face. "So, everyone who disagrees with you is just ignorant? That's convenient." "That's not what I said," Meghan protested. "I'm saying that people who haven't experienced something firsthand might not recognize it when they see it. That's not an attack. That's just reality." "Fair enough," Jonathan said, though his tone suggested he wasn't buying it. "But let's talk about some of the other issues. You've said the royal family didn't support you, didn't protect you, but they gave you a platform, a wedding that cost millions, homes to live in. What more did you want?" "I wanted them to correct the lies," Meghan said firmly. "I wanted them to defend us when the attacks became dangerous. I wanted basic protection for our family." "But you get upset when anyone questions your version of events," Jonathan continued. "But you never named anyone specifically, did you?" Jonathan pressed. You just sort of threw out these vague accusations and let everyone speculate. The whole world spent months trying to figure out who said what. Don't you think that's a bit irresponsible? Meghan's jaw tightened. We were trying to protect people, Jonathan. Even people who didn't necessarily protect us. We were trying to handle things with some level of grace and discretion. Grace and discretion, Jonathan scoffed. You went on international television and accused the royal family of racism. That's not discreet. That's about as public as it gets. We were asked a direct question, and we answered honestly, Meghan shot back. Would you prefer we lied? I'd prefer you had some perspective, Jonathan said, his voice rising. You married into one of the most famous families in the world. You lived in palaces, you had servants, you wore tiaras, and then you want us all to feel sorry for you because it was difficult? The audience gasped. Several people shouted disapproval, while others clapped in agreement. The atmosphere in the studio had completely shifted. That's incredibly dismissive of what we went through, Meghan said, her voice shaking slightly. This isn't about material possessions, Jonathan. This is about mental health. This is about racism. This is about a young mother being driven to the point where she didn't want to be alive anymore. Does any of that matter to you? Or are you just fixated on the palaces and the tiaras? Of course it matters, Jonathan said, though his tone suggested otherwise. But you have to understand how it looks from the outside. You're living this incredibly privileged life, and you're complaining about it. There are people in this country who are struggling to pay their rent, who are choosing between heating their homes and feeding their kids, and you're on television crying about how hard it was being a princess. I never said I was a princess, Meghan snapped. And you're completely missing the point. Mental health struggles don't discriminate based on wealth or status. Racism doesn't go away just because you're wearing nice clothes. The lack of empathy you're showing right now is exactly the problem. Lack of empathy? Jonathan laughed bitterly. I'm just not buying what you're selling, love. You want sympathy for leaving the royal family, but then you're constantly talking about them, constantly bringing them up, constantly making money off that connection. You can't have it both ways. We're not trying to have it both ways, Meghan said, her voice getting louder. We're trying to live our lives and tell our truth. Why is that so threatening to you? It's not threatening, Jonathan said, leaning forward aggressively. It's annoying. You left Britain, you said you wanted nothing to do with the royal family, and yet every other week there's some new interview or documentary or revelation. If you're so done with them, why can't you just move on and shut up about it? The audience erupted. Some people were booing Jonathan, others were cheering him on. The studio was in chaos. Shut up about it? Meghan repeated, her eyes flashing with anger. You want me to just be quiet and accept the way I was treated? Accept the racism? Accept the lies that were told about me? Accept that my child's security was taken away? Your child has security? Jonathan shot back. You're living in a mansion in Montecito with private security. Stop acting like you're some sort of refugee. That's not what I said. Meghan's voice cracked. You're twisting everything I say. This is exactly what the tabloids did. This is exactly the kind of treatment we were trying to escape. Oh, here we go with the victim narrative again, Jonathan said, rolling his eyes. Everything is someone else's fault. The tabloids were mean. The royal family was unsupported. The British public didn't understand you. At what point do you take responsibility for any of this? Responsibility for what? Meghan demanded. For falling in love? For marrying Harry? For existing while black? What exactly should I be taking responsibility for, Jonathan? For the division you've caused, Jonathan said, his face reddening. For turning Harry against his own family. For making all these accusations without proof. For profiting off your royal connection while simultaneously trashing the institution. I didn't turn Harry against anyone, Meghan said, her voice icy. Harry is a grown man who made his own decisions based on what he witnessed. And as for profiting, we need to support ourselves, don't we? Or would you prefer we just sit around living off taxpayer money like some members of the royal family. The audience roared. This was getting nasty. Don't you dare compare yourself to working royals, Jonathan said, standing up now. They dedicate their lives to public service. What do? Podcasts about yourself? Documentary series about how hard your life is? Give me a break. You have no idea what we do, Meghan said, standing up too. We run a foundation. We support numerous charities. We're raising our children. But none of that matters to you, because you've already made up your mind about me, haven't you? You're damn right I have, Jonathan said, his voice dripping with contempt. You're a fame-hungry opportunist who saw a chance to marry a prince and thought it would be all red carpets and photo shoots. And when you realize that being a royal actually involves duty and service and putting others first, you couldn't handle it. So you ran back to Hollywood, where you can play the victim and make millions doing it. The studio went completely silent. Even the audience members who had been supporting Jonathan seemed shocked by the viciousness of his words. Meghan stood there for a long moment, her chest rising and falling rapidly, her eyes bright with unshed tears. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but razor sharp. I came here tonight in good faith, Jonathan. I came here thinking we could have an honest conversation. But what you're doing right now isn't honest. It's cruel. It's calculated. And it's designed to humiliate me for ratings. Oh, please. Jonathan waved his hand dismissively. Don't act like you didn't know what you were signing up for. This is British television. We don't do softball interviews here. We ask the tough questions. These aren't tough questions, Meghan said, her voice rising again. This is a character assassination. There's a difference, and everyone watching knows it. Character assassination? Jonathan laughed. You've done more damage to your own character than I ever could. You and Harry have made yourselves into a joke. The whole world is laughing at you. The whole world? Meghan repeated. Or just bitter people like you, who can't stand to see someone stand up for themselves? Stand up for themselves? Jonathan's voice was incredulous now. You call what you're doing standing up for yourself? You're tearing down everyone around you. Your family, Harry's family, anyone who doesn't agree with your version of events. That's not bravery, Meghan. That's vindictiveness. Vindictiveness? Meghan's hands were shaking now. I've tried to be diplomatic. I've tried to be kind. I've tried to show grace. And where has that gotten me? Absolutely nowhere. People like you will hate me no matter what I do. Maybe that's because you're fundamentally unlikable, Jonathan shot back. Did you ever think of that? Maybe it's not some grand conspiracy. Maybe people just don't like you, the audience gasped again. Some were shouting now, calling Jonathan out, but he ignored them. Wow, Meghan said, shaking her head in disbelief. You really went there. You actually said that on national television. What? The truth? Jonathan said, spreading his hands wide. Someone needs to say it. Everyone's tiptoeing around you, afraid to offend you, afraid you'll cry racism or play the mental health card. But I'm not afraid. You want to know what people really think? That's what they really think. No, Jonathan, Meghan said, her voice deadly calm now. That's what you think. And you're projecting your own nastiness onto everyone else. You're a bully who's using his platform to attack someone for having the audacity to not stay quiet about being mistreated. I'm giving voice to what millions of people are thinking, Jonathan insisted. No, you're being a mouthpiece for racists and misogynists, Meghan fired back. You're giving legitimacy to hatred. You're making it okay to dehumanize someone because she dared to marry someone you felt belonged to you. Oh, here we go, Jonathan said mockingly. The self-righteous speech about standing up for yourself. You're not standing up for anything, Meghan. You're cashing in. There's a difference. Cashing in? Meghan's voice was shaking now with pure rage. I walked away from everything. I left my entire life behind. I lost relationships with people I cared about. My children don't have relationships with half their family. And you think I did that for money? Well, you're certainly making plenty of it now, aren't you? Jonathan sneered. How much did Netflix pay you? How much was Harry's book advance? How much are you charging for speaking engagements? That's none of quote. Your damn business, Meghan snapped. It's everyone's business, Jonathan shouted. You made it everyone's business when you went on television and aired all your grievances. You can't have privacy and publicity at the same time. We're allowed to earn a living, Jonathan, Meghan said, her voice shaking with barely controlled fury. What did you expect us to do? We were cut off financially. We lost our security. We had to start from scratch. Yes, we made deals that would allow us to support ourselves and protect our family. What's wrong with that? What's wrong is the hypocrisy, Jonathan said, jabbing his finger toward her. You complain about being exploited by the institution, and then you turn around and exploit that very institution for profit. You're selling your royal connections while simultaneously claiming you want nothing to do with the royal family. We're not selling connections, Meghan protested. We're telling our story. There's a difference. We're creating content that matters, that makes a difference, that speaks to issues we care about. Oh, spare me. Jonathan rolled his eyes dramatically. Your Netflix documentary was just you two whining for 6 hours. That's not making a difference. That's self-indulgence. You haven't even watched it, have you? Meghan challenged. I don't need to, Jonathan said dismissively. I've seen enough clips. I've read enough reviews. It's all the same thing. You, crying about how hard your life is. You're judging something you haven't even seen, Meghan said, disbelief clear in her voice. You're criticizing content you refuse to watch. Do you not see how intellectually dishonest that is? I don't need to eat the whole cake to know it's going to make me sick, Jonathan shot back. That's such a lazy argument, Meghan said. You're a journalist. You're supposed to inform yourself before forming opinions. But you've already decided who I am, what I represent, without any real knowledge or understanding. I know enough, Jonathan said coldly. I've watched how you've conducted yourself. I've seen the trail of broken relationships you've left in your wake. I've watched you and Harry isolate yourselves from everyone who cares about you. Isolate ourselves? Meghan's voice rose sharply. We've built new relationships. We've found people who support us, who believe us, who treat us with respect. Just because we're not surrounded by people who enabled our mistreatment doesn't mean we're isolated. You've built an echo chamber, Jonathan countered. Everyone around you just tells you what you want to hear. Nobody challenges you. Nobody holds you accountable. And what do you call what you're doing right now? Meghan demanded. You think this is holding me accountable? This is just cruelty dressed up as journalism. You know what? Meghan reached for her microphone pack. I don't have to stand here and listen to this. Oh, what a surprise, Jonathan said, sarcastically. When the questions get too hard, you run away. Just like you ran away from the royal family. Just like you run away from everything that challenges you. Meghan ripped off her microphone and threw it onto the chair. I'm not running away. I'm refusing to be disrespected. There's a difference. Is there? Jonathan called out as she started walking toward the exit. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the same thing. Meghan stopped and turned back, her eyes blazing. You want to know the real difference between us, Jonathan? I have the courage to stand up for what I believe in, even when it costs me everything. You just sit here in your comfortable studio, tearing people down because it makes you feel powerful. But you're not powerful. You're just mean. Mean? Jonathan laughed. I'm honest. I say what everyone else is thinking. You're a hypocrite, Meghan. You preach about compassion and kindness, but you've hurt more people than anyone. You've torn families apart. You've caused nothing but drama and division. I've caused division? Meghan's voice was incredulous. The tabloids lied about me every single day. They made up stories, doctored photos, twisted everything I said and did. And when I finally defended myself, I'm the one causing division? That's bullshit, Jonathan, and you know it. Watch your language, Jonathan said mockingly. Aren't you supposed to be a duchess? I'm a human being, Meghan shot back, which is something you seem to have forgotten. You don't see me as a person. You see me as a target, as entertainment, as someone you can attack without consequence. Without consequence? Jonathan scoffed. "You're the one who came on my show. You agreed to this. You could have said no, but you didn't. You wanted the platform. You wanted the attention. And now you're upset because you're not getting the adoration you think you deserve?" "I don't want adoration," Meghan said, her voice breaking. "I just wanted to be treated like a human being. I wanted basic respect, but I guess that's too much to ask from someone like you." "Someone like me?" Jonathan's face was bright red now. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Someone who's built a career on making other people uncomfortable," Meghan said. "Someone who thinks cruelty is comedy. Someone who has no problem destroying someone's reputation for a few laughs and some good ratings." "I haven't destroyed anything," Jonathan said. "You've done that all by yourself. Everything I've said tonight are things that people are already thinking. I'm just saying them out loud." "No," Meghan said firmly. "What you're doing is bullying. You're using your platform to attack someone who can't defend herself on equal ground. This is your show, your audience, your territory. And you're using that advantage to be as vicious as possible. If you can't handle it, you shouldn't have come," Jonathan said coldly. "You're absolutely right," Meghan said, nodding. "I shouldn't have come. I shouldn't have thought that maybe, just maybe, I could have a civil conversation with someone in British media. I should have known better. You've all proven time and time again that you don't care about the truth. You don't care about fairness. You just care about tearing me down." "Oh, cry me a river," Jonathan said. "You're standing here in your designer dress, living your life of luxury in California, and you want us all to feel sorry for you because a talk show host asked you some tough questions? Get over yourself. That was it. That was the final straw. You know what, Jonathan?" Meghan's voice was ice cold. "I hope you're proud of yourself. I hope this makes you feel like a big man. I hope you enjoy whatever temporary ratings boost you get from this. Because years from now, when people look back on this moment, they're going to see exactly what you are. A bully, a coward, someone who punches down because he doesn't have the talent or the integrity to do anything else." "Get out of my studio," Jonathan said, his voice shaking with rage. "Gladly," Meghan said. "I wouldn't spend another second in this toxic place if you paid me." She turned and walked toward the exit, her head held high despite the tears streaming down her face. The audience was in absolute chaos. Some people standing and applauding her, others booing, everyone shouting over each other. "That's right, walk away," Jonathan called after her, his voice cracking. "Run back to your mansion, run back to California. That's what you do best, isn't it? Run away when things get tough." But Meghan didn't respond. She didn't turn around. She just kept walking, her heels clicking against the floor, echoing through the studio. As she reached the door, one of the producers tried to stop her, tried to convince her to come back, but she brushed past him without a word. Behind her, Jonathan stood on the stage, breathing heavily, his shirt soaked with sweat, his face twisted, with anger, and something that might have been regret, though he'd never admit it. "Well," he said to the audience, his voice hoarse, "that certainly was something, wasn't it?" But nobody was listening. Half the audience was on their phones, recording videos, typing furiously. The other half was arguing amongst themselves, some defending Jonathan, others condemning him. In the corridor backstage, Meghan leaned against the wall, her whole body shaking. Her security team surrounded her, creating a protective barrier. "We need to go," one of her security guards said gently. "Now," Meghan nodded, pushing herself off the wall. She walked quickly through the backstage area, past shocked crew members, past other guests waiting in their dressing rooms, past everyone who had witnessed what just happened. As she burst through the stage door into the cool London night, the fresh air hit her face. She gulped it down, trying to steady herself, trying to process what had just occurred. Her car was waiting, the door already open. She climbed in quickly, and as soon as the door closed behind her, she finally let go. The tears came in earnest now, all the anger and hurt and humiliation pouring out of her. Back inside the studio, Jonathan tried to continue the show, but it was pointless. The energy was completely destroyed. His next guest gave short, uncomfortable answers, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. When the show finally ended and the cameras stopped rolling, Jonathan sat alone on the stage, the studio lights dimming around him. He'd gotten his dramatic moment, his viral clip, his headlines. Outside, Meghan's car pulled away from the studio, disappearing into the London traffic. She stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past. She'd come here hoping to build bridges, to show a different side of herself. Instead, she'd been ambushed, attacked, and humiliated on live television again. The heels that had clicked so decisively across that studio floor as she walked out had carried her to freedom, and she wasn't looking back.